No, no, ma'am. It isn't, but I gave the cameraman, it's on the disc that I gave the cameraman, and you can get it from him. He just raised his hand, sitting right back there.
You can also look up those libraries on the internet.
Right.
ETSU has a big one, King College has a small one. They're all listed.
Okay, so now let me go on and pick up where I left off. Due process. Well, that's one of the things that they want to be able to eliminate is your due process. Of course, that is one of your unalienable rights. Well, if they can eliminate your due process, certainly they can eliminate freedom of speech. Next is individual cost versus public benefit. Are the things that you're investing in benefiting the public? And of course, who's going to determine that? Well, there'll be a stakeholder committee that will be formed to determine whether or not you're spending money equitably for the public good. We just went over that. Oh, I got my slides now. I need to work on that. Okay, I'm getting close down to the end right now. And this is the National Environmental Policy Act. Now, we haven't even talked about this. This goes back to 1969. A very local Congress passed this policy act. It is very much like a local comprehensive plan. In that, it is a policy statement, official, adopted at either the local level or the national level, in this case, national. And it was passed or signed into law by President Nixon when he came in 1970. And if you happen to remember, 1970 was the first Earth Day celebration. It goes hand in hand with this. Now, this is a quote from that law. It's very short. It says that the federal government wants to ensure that all Americans have safe, healthful, productive, and aesthetically and culturally pleasing surroundings. Now, you can see how the Coleman Comprehensive Plan has aesthetics in it, and here now we look at the national level, it is mirroring that. Well, I thought that the national, and by the way, I'm going to fill in the blanks here. This is my opinion. This is what I think now we're under. So I think the National Environmental Policy Act is actually the philosophy that is being adopted. I think that Agenda 21 is a milestone along that path. Thought that ought to go right there. The Council on Environmental Quality has been called the Council of God because they establish the criteria by which the federal agencies have to determine an endangered species can be classified. So they are actually regulating a religious law because they are saying that a toad frog has more rights than you do. So I thought that ought to go where the church used to go. Well, of course, the President of the United States should take the place of the king in this place, this instance. Now, the Environmental Protection Agency, and this is an actual photograph of the badge, I want you to notice that it is the Office of Criminal Enforcement. So now you can actually commit a crime against Mother Earth. Thought that ought to go right there. Birmingham already has the Environmental Police Force. I thought that ought to go right there. Well, if you've already got the environmental police, can the code enforcement officer be very far behind? I thought that ought to go right there. Now, what has Congress done? Well, they've acquiesced, and they have just become a subservient entity in this chain of events. And I thought that ought to fill out this whole thing. So, I'm going to close. This is my last slide. We'll open it up for questions. And this is from the 1901 Alabama Constitution, Article 1, Section 35. And it says, the sole, object, and only legitimate end of government is to protect society, the whole of society. I think I misquoted that. It says citizen, the individual. The object of government is to protect the individual in the enjoyment of life, liberty, and property, and when it assumes other functions, it is usurpation and oppression. Now, now let me say this, that everybody in the 1700s would have recognized that phrase, life, liberty, and property. And if you're not familiar with John Locke, you need to be. Everybody in this country needs to know who John Locke is. And it is the fault of the education system that we don't know. Because John Locke coined this phrase. And when Jefferson came along, he said that life and property are redundant in its concept. So he substituted property with pursuit of happiness. Now I'm going to pose a question to you, a thought. And I'm going to say that any government that will not protect the first aspect of property, life, among the most innocent people among us, do you think they're going to protect your private property rights as an adult? So, with that, anybody have any questions? Sir?
Well, that's the point that you just made about if they won't protect it, at least they'll regulate it to the point that it makes it worthless.
Yes.
I have a very, very dear friend that tried to sell an acre. There was so much red tape in the city of Bristol, Tennessee, that to sell that 1 acre of land would require a 50-foot right-of-way to go to it. Now that 50-foot right-of-way had to connect to an existing 10-foot right-of-way, a 10-foot road. But because this was a new piece of property that would be coming into the city, someone put a house on it, had to have a 50-foot right-of-way to connect to the 10-foot right-of-way. The reason for that was so that a bus could turn around on the property, whether there's any children there or not.
Right.
I mean, they couldn't walk 50 yards to the 10-foot right-of-way, the bus had to go to their house.
Right.
So the property couldn't be sold.
Exactly. It fits right into the comprehensive plan, and I bet if the individual had looked at the map, he would have seen that would be one stipulation, and that was just one regulation where they could get by with doing
Another
that.
little point, it's currently part of the farm.
Right.
So that just goes right in there.
All right, let me point out that this is the USA Today. This is the front page of May 19th, 2011 issue. At that time of this year, they were having floods all across the Mississippi Valley. The headlines on this article is changes urged in flood control. Now, I don't know if you knew it, but we have a floodplain association, and that Alabama had their first annual association meeting in Gulf Shores. We're paid for this bureaucracy boondoggle, and this is a quote from the state floodplain manager. His name is Larry Larson. He is executive director, and he said that it would be a requirement to force the relocation of communities to convert developed areas into open space. So the intent of the federal government through this floodplain master association is to remove those levees. And this article goes on and says that they want to make that Mississippi River free flow as it used to. This will decimate the breadbasket of America. Questions? Now let's don't let it be one. Let's break the ice. Somebody got a question out there. Come, sir.
Do you have any idea how many of the governors in the various states are aware of this?
Well, let me say this. We in Alabama elected a Republican governor. He turned around and hired his Democratic opponent. Then he put him in charge of the rural development of Alabama, created the office, and put him in charge of it. Now, if you go and look up the Rural Development Office at USDA, you will find that there's a brand new executive order dealing with that issue that creates mandates. In my opinion, there will be a coalition and a liaison between the federal government and this new position of this appointee by a Republican governor. I can't speak to what's in his heart or what's in his mind, but I can look at his actions, and I believe that they are mirroring what is going on everywhere, and it makes no difference whether he's Republican or Democrat. Apparently, they're all following in line. And until we bring this issue to the forefront and make sure that we have elected officials that are knowledgeable, and we have. In Alabama, we were able to talk to 4 or 5 individuals and get them spooled up on what's going on. And I'll just briefly tell you a little story about one of the individuals. We went and talked to him. He's now a senator. And we explained all of this in a very quick fashion because he's a businessman, and he gave us about an hour and a half. We sat down, and we couldn't put it on a slide, but we gave him papers showing all this stuff. Well, he didn't say that we were incorrect, but he said, I agree with you, but it was an unenthusiastic agreement. Well, the next time we saw him, he had been visited by a professor from the University of Alabama in Huntsville. And this professor, in his description, the senator's description, said he was salivating over the expectations of introducing bison and elk back into Alabama in a purchase of land. And he was just, and of course, this goes along with the biodiversity treaty. Now, I'm not a farmer, I'm not a rancher, but the chairman of my group is a rancher, and I know a veterinarian. and bison have brucellosis. Didn't know it, but brucellosis causes an abortion of calves up to 80%. It can be transmitted to cattle. In Montana, where this occurred, the brucellosis-free certification for Montana was lost. It cost millions of dollars to get that certification back, and it continues to be an ongoing cost, and it's put a lot of ranchers out of business. So if this happens, this would likely cripple the ranching in Alabama, and this is can be transmitted to humans. So when I talked to this senator, guess what? He was enthusiastic. He said, we got to stop this. This is not going to happen on my watch. So we need desperately to talk. Yes.
I've been listening intently to your presentation, and one of the things that I didn't hear that I was looking to hear was that it seemed the major emphasis was a little bit louder.
Louder, yes, please.
Stand up. One of the points that you were making, or maybe the theme of the points that you were making, were that so many times it was government, whether state, local, regional, United Nations, whatever, were taking actions to dissolve or reduce their rights. What I was hoping to maybe hear was the influence of big business that is on those entities that to me is a bigger concern. Because if you go through, just you earlier said about what we've done in Southwest Virginia in reference to our coal. Now there's another issue that's on the table, and that is this gas fracturing that has got, it's a very hotly contested issue. So there are two huge monetary financial windfalls. And so the impact of private business and enterprise, to me, is a larger concern than my board of supervisors or my state representative or the government.
Now, I'll respond. If you'll recall in the beginning when I put that first slide up, I talked about the various entities that were coming together to create a self-regulating system. You recall, business and corporations are part of it. I can only squeeze so much into something that everybody can absorb. So I have to eliminate some things. Because I didn't place an emphasis on it does not mean that it is not a big component of this. Now this slide shows some of the major corporations that are involved with government partnering in a public-private partnership way to bring all of what you're talking about. I hope that you see that I haven't slighted this because I haven't presented it. It's just that how much can you present? You know, the mind can only absorb that which certain parts of the anatomy can withstand. So,
And sir, let me make a comment.
yes,
I've been around a while. I've never seen the IBM police force.
that's true.
To answer this gentleman's, concerns.
Right.
All right.
But
General Electric and IBM does not have a police force. We're not going to.
right, but if you'll notice, GE is partnering with government. All of these companies are doing the same thing at whatever level they can. Because if you don't have certification, green certification, you're not going to be in business. It's just that simple. I know that if you go to Lowe's, you'll look at a tag, it's sustainable forestry. You can watch on TV and see commercials dealing with sustainable forestry. We have a sustainable legacy program in Alabama, and it's really squeezing out the small individual logger and timber because International Paper and these other companies are not accepting timber that is not certified. You go to Lowe's and look at that little label, you're paying a premium because you perceive that it is green, and green's good for the environment. Well, you're squeezing out the guy that can't adhere to those practices because it costs money to do it.